Miller Museum interviewing veterans, and today we have with us, what's your name, please?
Leo Mahar.
Where do you live, Leo?
I live on 7 Griffin Avenue, Hoosick Falls.
I see. Did you live in Hoosick Falls all your life, or did you move in?
No, I lived here, was born here in Hoosick Falls.
You were born
1928.
in 1928. You were born. All right. Tell us a little about before you went into the service, Leo. What'd you do?
Well, I graduated from high school here, and
Did you go to the public school or St. Mary's?
public.
I see. And
I went 8th grade to St. Mary's, and then went to public school.
I see.
And I graduated.
All right. When did you graduate? Do you know?
48.
48. All right. And then what did you do when you got out of high school?
Well, I worked in the woods some, logging, and did a little bulldozing and so forth. I got called in the service in October 49, and was in a year.
You were drafted.
Drafted for a year.
I see.
Got out in.
Well, what did you do that year you were in? What did they?
We went. Sent to Japan, and I was in the 25th Infantry Division, 27th Regiment, and I got discharged from there into the active reserve. And when the Korean War started, I was called back in and shipped over.
Well, you got called back in. It was when? October 50. You got called back in.
October 50.
I see. All right. The war had started in August.
That's right. August.
Or July. I don't know, in that area.
Around August, I think.
Yeah.
And then I was shipped into over to Korea, landed at Incheon, and
Wait, before you jump, you were already trained in the infantry.
yeah.
So they didn't give you any more training?
Yes, we was called back. They sent us to Fort Hood, Texas, for an infantry refresher course, and then sent to Camp Stoneman, California, where we shipped out for Korea. I was assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division.
Yeah. When did you get to Korea about?
In November.
In November of 50. All right.
Assigned to the 2nd Infantry Division and 9th Infantry Regiment, Company I. And we were in Incheon, Seoul, and then fought all through the mountains in Korea. Finally got up in and around Wonju, and I was wounded north of Wonju about March 1st, and went into a Marine aid station.
Now, you were in a battle and you got wounded. Is that what happened? And you get it? Was it machine gun or
No, I think
shrapnel?
rifle. They were shooting on. We were trying to get up to this machine gun emplacement on the mountain, and we got up. A squad of us got up fairly close to it, and we could see the Chinese every once in a while, and we crawled up to where we thought we could throw some grenades into the machine gun nest. One guy got a little too anxious, and he was too far away, and he threw the grenade. Of course, that alerted the Chinese. They started throwing grenades back. They had the old type German potato masher grenade that you pull the string on them to activate the fuse. And when they threw the grenades, of course, it alerted these other Chinese on another ridge, kind of guarding their flank, and we could see the dirt flying up around us. So when we got up to jump back off the edge where they couldn't get a good shot at us, I jumped up and felt something hit me. It felt like a hammer, and it was like a electric shock, like it smashed your funny bone on something. And he hit me in the knuckles here. Of course, he had gloves on. And I got down to the foot of the mountain to a medic, and he just wrapped it up. We couldn't get out because they had the road secured, the Chinese. We couldn't get out. The ones that were hit real bad, they had a helicopter come in and take them out. but we didn't have helicopters like they had in Vietnam. We had a little small helicopter. They'd take 2 men in a basket on each side, fly them out to an aid station. But they couldn't open the road to the other, walking wounded. We had to wait till they secured the road so we could get out. And then our driver got lost, so we got into a Marine aid station, and they cleaned it up and put a cast on it, didn't set any bones. And from there shipped to Taegu, to an Army hospital, or field hospital, and from there flew us back into 141st General Hospital in Japan, which they set a hand and put a cast on. But then they had to cut that cast off because it was still swelling, and it tightened up, so they had to cut that off and put another cast on it. Then I stayed there until it healed up and pretty good. Then they assigned me to a second medium port company in Japan, where we were in charge of the unloading ships there in Tara Port in Japan. Had Japanese labor unloading the ships and so forth.
I see.
But I lost my company commander in one battle. He was a Second World War man, and Captain Howe, he got shot in the mouth. He was killed. Then my platoon leader, Jerome McGovern, was killed in another battle we had. Lost my squad leader, Robinson. He was hit. Mortar landed between me and Robinson. I heard the stuff go by me. It never touched me, but it hit him bad in the back, and I don't know whether he ever survived or not. They took him out. So it was quite an experience, I'll tell you.
Yeah, must have been a terrible experience. And you came back to Japan and you did that, and then eventually, now let me ask you a couple questions. I've done some other veterans. They said it was cold as heck in Korea.
Oh, it's cold. I hated winters ever since. But I used to sit in a hole at night. I usually had 2 men to a hole, and when they attacked, it was usually early in the morning, and you'd have 2 men in the hole, and we'd take turns, dozing during the night. But then about 2 or 3 o'clock, they'd wake everybody up. You'd be on full alert, because that's usually when they hit you. And boy, you'd look up. In the morning, you'd wake up and look at the guy in the hole next to you, and he looked like a porcupine with his whiskers all frost, and the rifle all covered white with frost. But
they said it was terribly cold. And
we lost a lot of men with frozen feet, frozen hands. I always kept an extra pair of socks, and I'd take my boots off at night, wring my wet socks out, and then put them down inside of my belt, and let the body heat dry them off, and take the ones I had in my belt, put them back on. So I kept my feet from freezing that way, but they were plenty cold, I'll tell you. But I don't know how these guys from the south ever stood it, because we were kind of used to being in the north. We're kind of used to cold weather, but that got down to 20 below zero over there, and you were sitting in a hole at night looking at the stars. And I used to look up at the moon when it was out and think, well, that's shining over Woody Falls.
Yeah. Okay, so that's another thing they told me, there were the trees. They cut all the trees down. And it was hard when you went up hills. There were no trees. There were just all little stumps.
Yeah, they were usually like, there was a lot of small scrub pine and little scrub oak on a lot of the mountains. And of course the artillery knocked a lot of them, blew a lot of them off. But they had a great trick of rolling grenades down at you. The old banana mashers didn't roll too good, but they had concussion grenades, and they had fragmentation grenades of ours. pineapples that they'd throw out and let them roll. Then they'd roll right down the side. You wouldn't see them coming until they were right up next to you, you know, and then it was too late. But they were tough, I'll tell you, those Chinese. And they lived on hardly nothing, you know, they didn't have the equipment we had. They had an awful lot of casualties from frozen feet because all they had were like little tennis shoes. I don't know how they did it, but
Well, okay, so you're in Japan, getting shipped home, right? And you came back, your hand healed pretty well, or?
yeah, well, it was crippled up for quite a while, but they straightened it out pretty good. And then, of course, using my hand, I think, with the work I was doing, helped loosen things up a lot.
Yeah, I think it did too. All right, so they shipped you back to the States, and you came back to the States in what? You got out in November of 51. So you came back, and they discharged you.
They discharged me we came back into the state of Washington when we came back. I went out of California twice. No, I went out of California the first time, came back into California, and the next time shipped out from California, and the last time come back into the state of Washington.
I see. Then you came back. Did you get discharged out of Dix or
discharged from Kilmer?
From Kilmer.
Yeah.
All right. So then here you are. You're out of the service finally. You got rid of that.
Yeah.
And you came back to Hoosick Falls, or?
Yeah, came back to Hoosick Falls.
And then what did you do, Leo?
Well, I went in the excavating business then, and I stayed in that until I had to retire with a heart problem. So.
And you got married about when?
Got married in about, it's been around 54, 53 or 4.
I see. And then how many children did you have?
Had 6.
6 children.
5 girls and 1 boy.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yep. And that's about it, huh? Your kids are, some of them I know live around here. I see some of them. I know your son helps you, was running that business now, right, that you had.
Right,
yeah.
And I, let's see, I've got 1 daughter in Philadelphia, got another one in Maine, 1 in East Greenbush, 1 here in Hoosick Falls, 1 in Bennington.
So they're at least you can see them and so
Mike
forth.
is in Bennington.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say about either Hoosick Falls or about the service that you want on record, you know?
Well, I went to see my platoon leader and his father, his family in Washington. I saw in a paper where he had 2 sons killed in action. He had 1 in the 1st Cav that was awarded the Medal of Honor, and Jerome, my platoon leader, was awarded the Silver Star, and his father was so upset about the Korean War that he refused to let Truman award either one of his sons the medals. So I wrote to him when I was in Albany in the VA, and he wrote back to me and said that he couldn't get any information about Jerome. He knew where his other son was killed and knew all about that, but he didn't know too much about Jerome. So he asked me if he'd appreciate it if I could give him more information about Jerome. So I went to Florida one year with a friend of mine, and on the way back we stopped and looked his father up and explained to him, you know, what happened and about where it was where he was killed. And I remember that night when he was shot, we were trying to take this hill out one day, couldn't make it. Had to pull back and tried it again, fought all day, and that night we were pretty near to the top, and I heard Jerome holler, "Come on, you guys, what are you waiting for?" And evidently he stood up and skylighted himself, and I didn't see his body. I didn't want to see it, but
Yeah, well, okay, it was nice of you to go back and see his father. It was really nice. Well, Leo, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Appreciate it.